I almost ended my entire military career because somebody tried to rob the gas station on base. It's a true story. So back when I was still in the military, I was enlisted in the Air Force as security forces, which basically means I was a glorified police officer. So I spent years up to this point slumming it on the streets, right? I was running patrols, I was standing on the flight lines, making sure no one approached the aircraft. I was the guy who stood at the gate and went beep, checking everyone's ID card to come in. So after years of doing that, I finally made my way up to BDOT controller. And what that basically means is I was a dispatcher, right? So when you call the police, when you call 911, I was the guy. I answered the phone and I dispatched police, fire, EMS, everyone on base to where they needed to be. So when shit hit the fan, I was the guy who had to coordinate everything. At the time, I was still an airman, still an E4, and very much a part of the mafia, which doesn't exist, right? Well, it's important to know that in the office with me was a sergeant, a guy who outranked me, my superior, all right? But I also want to note quick to the story that even though he was a sergeant and he outranked me, he wasn't in charge, okay? He wasn't certified to be up there. He was days away from certification, but he wasn't certified yet, which means anything and everything that happened was still 100% on me, okay? Now, up to this point, we had a really slow day. Nothing was going on. And we'd been waiting for about an hour for an exercise to kick off. Just a local flight level exercise. Now, what that means is the flight chief, people from back office, they were going to come down, kick off an exercise, do a couple things that were, out of the norm. So when stuff really hits the fan, people know how to actively respond. They know what to do because we've practiced it and we've trained it, okay? Now, before we can actually kick off an exercise, we have to notify everyone that an exercise is happening. And the way we do that is we also have to get notified that an exercise is happening so everyone knows that everything we're about to say is 100% fake and is not real, so they shouldn't, do anything that's going to harm someone else. So while me and the sergeant are sitting here waiting for this notification to come in, the phone suddenly rings and he picks it up and he says, "Law enforcement desk." And that's all the words he gets out of his mouth, okay? Because he starts frantically writing something down. And he's like, "Ma'am, you gotta calm down. You gotta calm down. Tell me where you are." And I was just like, oh shit, right? Something's going on, right? Something's happening. So I go over there and I look over his shoulder and he's got the word "really" written down. That's all he has. So I tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, "Hey man, like what's going on?" Kind of waves me off. And I said, "Hey, tell me what's going on so I can start dispatching." And he has the phone, okay? He looks me dead in the eyes and he says, "Armed robbery, shop at." And I swear to God, I looked this man dead in his eyes and I said, "Is this real?" And he looked at me and he says, "Yes." I was like, oh my God.
Mother of God.
And so all my training, all my waiting had led me to this single moment, okay? This was the single moment in my career where I was going to be a hero, okay? And I wasn't going to let it waste. I immediately grabbed my map, I grabbed the radio, I grabbed the QRC book, I slammed them all down, and I knew there was nothing in the procedures, nothing we had trained for up to this point that said, this is how you deal with an armed robbery at the shop at the gas station on base, right? I knew it. I didn't even have to look, but I looked anyway. So I figured, hey, you know what? I need to grab the next best thing. So I grabbed the QRC for barricaded suspect and active shooter because I was like, one of these two situations is probably going to be the result, right? So I get on the radio and I immediately start dispatching. I'm like, "Police 1, police 2, police 3, all the polices, all the canines, the flight chief, my boss." I'm like, "We have an armed robbery at the shop at. I need you to blah, 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 blah." Man, I'm coordinating, right? I'm in the zone, all right? This is my moment. I yell across the office to the fire dispatcher who's on the other side listening to music or watching movies. And I shout, "Fire, fire." And he looks up and I said, "We got an armed robbery at the shop at. I need medical on standby. I need ambulances. I need everything." And he's like, are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is serious." And he's like, "Oh shit." And so he starts dispatching, right? I'm picking up the phone, okay? I'm calling my leadership. I'm calling the base leadership. I'm notifying everybody, all right? And this is all happening right like that. Well, all of a sudden, across the radio, my patrolmen, they're coming across and they're like, copy, copy. That's a good copy. We're en route. And I'm like, these mother effers, they think it's an exercise, right? They think it's 100% fake, all right? And we're operating in hero mode, okay? We're going at it for real. So I get on the radio and I'm like, that's a firm. I need everybody there. This is real world. The gate's shut down. Don your PPE. Get ready, because it's about to go down.
It's about to go down.
So immediately, everybody gets it, right? I can hear the excitement mixed with panic, mixed with fear in their voices. I can hear everyone's sirens simultaneously kick off, and they're all just like, copy, copy, en route, we're on our way. And these guys, I had found out that they had all hopped the curb. They were all nearby to the gas station, but they all started hopping the curve, pulling up there every which way. They had all surrounded the building, okay? And they all started making entry in there without ever being told to. Okay, they got out of the cars, they drew their guns, all right? Everyone who was pumping gas just sees this and they immediately just lay on the ground, okay? And my guys start charging the doors, right? I didn't tell them to go in, but they were like, fuck it, it's hero moment, okay? And they're going in. So they went into the front doors, they went into the back maintenance door, they went into the side doors. I had about 15 cops immediately swarm this gas station with their guns drawn, right? Pistols, rifles, the whole shebang. K9 was out there, everything, all right? And as they're doing this, my sergeant, he just looks up at me, all right, locks eyes with me, and he just slowly reaches over to the radio, hits the button, and he says, exercise, exercise, exercise. And I looked at him and I was like, what?
What? What?
Because you see, I knew it. I knew it right there. My career was over, right? It's done. It's done. I can't survive this. I'm an E4. I'm dead, right? My career is absolutely toast. As the patrolmen hear the word exercise, 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 they're inside the building now, guns drawn, patrons all standing around. They holster their weapons, get in their cars, and they leave. And nobody says a word to anyone, right? The people at that gas station have no idea what's going on. And I'm immediately mad because I'm like, this is it, right? My career's over, right? Because I was told this was real, right? And so I ran it like it was real. And you see, what had happened was they never notified us that this was an exercise. My sergeant never verified that it was real. So they had some miscommunication going on between them, right? They were treating it like an exercise. We were treating it like it was real. Well, they had heard over the phone me shouting commands about it being real over the radio, and they started flipping out on him because they're like, hey, this isn't real. What are you doing? So, at that point, it was already too late, right? I had already dispatched everyone. I had medical on standby. We'd shut down the entire base, okay? We had notified base leadership, right? Notifications were going all the way up to the commander, the base commander, that there was an armed robbery actively going on at the gas station on base. So I immediately yell over to the fire guy, and I'm like, hey, you got to stand down. You got to stand down. It's fake, all right? It's an exercise. We didn't know. Well, of course, he's pissed, right? So he's got to start, telling everyone to stand down. I got to start making phone calls to like our leadership, base leadership, being like, hey, miscommunication. It's not real. It's fake. Stand down. Everything's fine, right? And then by the time I finished just sorting all that out, the sergeant had finished running the exercise. And for about the next 20 minutes, man, I was mad, right? Like I was really mad. I just sat in my corner and I stewed, right? Because I knew what was coming, right? I've been in the military long enough to understand what was about to happen to me. Well, the tension was so palpable, you could slice that sucker with a knife, okay? And so my sergeant does what any good leader should do, in that situation, and he starts using gallows humor, right? He starts making death jokes and jokes about us dying and how now we can never believe any phone call we get that comes in because it's probably going to be fake. And you know what? It worked. It worked. I was cracking up, right? We were both bent over, dying laughing. And so I started chiming in and he was laughing. And this went on for about a good 20 minutes of us like laughing so hard, we're literally crying, okay? Now, my flight chief finally got off the exercise and he straight up kicks in the BDOC door, right? I'm talking like full boot, like kicked it open, right? He comes over, he locks us up at attention and he just starts screaming at us, okay? He's going to town yelling at us and we cannot keep a straight face because we just spent the last 20 minutes laughing at the absolute absurdity of the whole situation that we couldn't stop giggling the entire time he's laughing at us, which just made him madder, okay? He starts yelling at us even more, and he's, because he thought we weren't taking this whole thing seriously. Well, finally, we calmed down enough to be like, hey, this is why we're laughing. We understand it's serious. We just didn't know how to relieve the tension, so we started making jokes, and then now that's why we're laughing. And he understood it, right? He was a good boss. He just nods his head and he goes, okay, I understand. And he goes, listen, okay? Don't you tell a soul. Don't tell a single person, and I'm gonna go fix this, okay? And he leaves. So of course I start telling everybody, right? I'm telling my friends, I'm telling my sergeants, I'm telling everybody because one, it's absolutely hilarious, okay? And two, I'm still part of the mafia at this point, right? So you gotta tell everyone, you gotta spread it around. It's like law. But true to his word, I never got in trouble for it. It was never brought up to me. The whole thing was 100% swept under the rug.